I am a proud alumnus of UNT. I graduated in 1991, had a great experience on campus and love Denton and love visiting from time to time. I also really enjoy what I do. And I have always thought this was the right career path for me. But as I've grown in my career, it just keeps getting better. So I get to meet a lot of interesting and smart people. I get to support some incredible brands and really help those companies tell their brand story in the marketplace. So we'll be talking about landing your dream job, which I feel like I have. So I'm excited to share some things with you today. Thanks.
How about you, Leslie? Tell us a little bit about you. Ooh, we can't hear you. Are you on mute?
Is that better? Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can.
Sorry about that. Okay, so my name is Leslie Mbaugh. I graduated UNT in 2006, and I am an attorney, and I work at Texas Instruments, and that is a technology company. A lot of people kind of know us for the calculators, but that is kind of a small portion of the business. We make semiconductors that go into everything, but I feel like, going from the journalism school to going to law school, I feel like a lot of the skills that I picked up in journalism school certainly helped me along the way, chief among them writing and communication. And those are skills that kind of transcend any profession that you go in. And, something cool about my job is that I really do help the businesses kind of think of creative solutions to help them grow. And would love to talk a little bit more about that. And to me, it is a dream job for me. And I think it really marries those skills well that I learned at UNT.
And Raquel?
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Raquel Daniels, and I graduated from UNT twice. So I have my undergrad and master's. And so I graduated the first time, 1994, I think. And then the second time was about 2008. And so I too still frequent North Texas, and it's been an interesting journey because the last time I was there was like, oh my God, this doesn't even look like my school anymore. So many great strides have happened, and I'm really pleased to hear that. My career, I currently serve the role of diversity, equity, and inclusion for Southwest Airlines. It is my second tour of duty at Southwest, so I was there several years ago in the capacity of marketing, which probably is my true form and my beginning as a practitioner. And I think about everything that I've learned, both in my experiences in the sociology and communications department. I use that quite frequently in all that I do. As far as a dream job, it's interesting. I don't think I am at the end of my career journey. I think I am in another season of my life, and this season is fun, and I'm excited and look forward to how this evolves. It definitely keeps me engaged. I never have a dull moment, and no day is like the day before. So if that is dream and exciting, then I've definitely hit that sweet spot. So happy to be here.
I'm going to turn this over to Trent now, and he'll ask the first question, and then we'll go back and forth playing a little show here.
Great. Well, we are excited to have each of you guys on the call. We're going to, if you feel comfortable, it'd be great if you turn your cameras on so they can see you and engage. But we're going to ask a number of questions, and then hopefully leave some time at the end where we can have you guys ask questions, because I know this is a really hot topic, particularly for some of you who may be getting ready to graduate in May or even at the end of the summer. And you want to know what it's going to take to land that dream job. So hopefully we'll give you some insights into doing that. Okay, so first question, and why don't we start with Raquel, then go to Leslie, and then back to Tina. We'll go in reverse order. It's only fair, right, Raquel?
Only fair. I'm ready.
Okay, so what was your first job after graduation, and what did it teach you as you were getting into that?
My first job was, I was an investigator for Child Protective Services. And so it is nothing like what I'm doing now. The only thing that I think is in common is this need and desire to create opportunity and access. I think my vision and my mission in life is to create opportunity and help people to seize their opportunities. And I think often people don't know how to do that. And so I really did not know what I was getting into with Child Protective Services. I understood from a sociology standpoint that it was helping people, and I always wanted to do that. But I don't think I had all the fine print. I tell you, I didn't have all the fine print. But what it taught me was just a sincere reason to understand work ethic, and that regardless of the opportunity or the job, that you will receive a lesson. And so it taught me how to really get to know people and create relationships with people from all walks of life, that you never can truly know how your education or the things that you've learned will come to bear and help you in your career. And it was just the beginning. I became a really great writer, and it also helped my communication skills. I mean, I think we have these traditional ideas that looks like, but that experience really helped me to develop and appreciate different experiences in different walks of life that even weigh into all of the social and diversity, equity, and inclusion conversations I have now. I would have never seen that coming because it's been quite a few years in that span.
So before the other two weigh in on the question as well, do you, and you guys can think about this as well, do you think that it's possible to land the dream job immediately out of school, or is there just the point where you kind of have to, and I hate to use the word pay your dues because I know that could be triggering to some students, but is there a point where you really just kind of need to get in and learn and grow and develop on the route to your dream job? How should they be thinking about that?
I think that is exactly right. I mean, you heard me say earlier, I think dream job is elusive, and I think we all have different seasons in our life. And so you have to find it. Your dream job at 20, I will almost promise you, may not be your dream at 45. And so allowing yourself the flexibility to understand how you're defining it for each moment in time, and then being able to adjust. I think the great gift for any student on this call is having a gift of agility, flexibility, and adjusting, and recognizing that even when you walk into an opportunity, you probably will bring a great body of work and a great body of experience. By that, I mean, everybody has something to give, but you don't know what you don't know. And so being open to go in and learn and allow every moment to inform your portfolio in the next decision you're gonna make. I never would have thought from Child Protective Services to where I am now and all the steps in between, I couldn't have threaded that together for all the tea in China. Just could not have asked me, because I wanted to be a lawyer. And so you could not have asked me, is this where I saw myself? Not in a million years, you could not have asked me that, and I would have been able to tell you that. But I think you have to be open and understand the season which you're in is so critical.
Leslie, do you want to answer the question too? Your first job out of graduation, what you learned, and your thoughts on the dream job?
Yeah, I have a lot of, hearing Raquel speak, it's a lot of themes, some of the same themes were kind of going through my head. And so right after graduation, I'm probably, I'm the one that people probably don't want to hear from, because after graduation, I went to do more school and I went to law school, and I can tell you going to law school is very much like a job. But even after going to law school, my first job after that, they both kind of taught me very similar things. And what comes to my mind is discipline. And the importance of having discipline in your actions and in your thoughts, commitment to working on your craft, whatever that is, the commitment to continue to learn and self-improve. Part of, as I think back on that transition from, journalism school to law school, I think a lot of what made me gravitate towards law school is this the sense of constant learning, which I know exists in journalism too, the getting to the bottom of things and synthesizing things. Like, it really was just a natural progression for me to go to law school, because you're having the same kinds of conversations about what the issues are, or, following, the importance of X, Y, Z. So there's a lot of similarities there, but I think overall discipline is just such an important part to the success of any area of your life, personal or professional. Having a goal in mind and being committed to achieving it, and that's not to say that there won't be course correction along the way. Kind of like Raquel was saying, I mean, she always knew she wanted to be a lawyer. I had no idea I wanted to be a lawyer until it was later on in my, undergrad career. So it is about being kind of open-minded and being true to yourself, and really kind of asking yourself, what's important to you at that point. For me, it was that constant challenge. Like, I constantly wanted to be challenged. That's so important. Even to this day, I mean, no 2 days really look alike. I'm constantly seeing, new issues arise, and I'm learning from that. And that has always been such a driver for me. And so it's really kind of just staying in tune with yourself and following that. I totally agree that your dreams can change along the way. So there is no one static, dream job necessarily.
Cool. Tina?
Yeah, so my first job out of UNT was working for a UNT alum. So he was a guest speaker, David Hadler is his name, and he was a guest speaker in one of my journalism classes, big lecture hall kind of class. And so I got brave enough at the end of his talk to walk to the front of the lecture hall and shake his hand and talk to him a little bit about his advertising agency. And at the time, I was looking for an internship because I was still in college and I was a junior. And so I asked him if he had any summer internship slots, and he hadn't had an internship program before, but said, I've been thinking about building one, and maybe you could help me start that. And so he just opened the door, like you said, Raquel, to opportunity. And I walked in, and I was just so thankful for that opportunity. So I worked for him and his agency for a year as an intern. It was a paid internship. And then when I graduated, they offered me a full-time entry-level position. So I am a big proponent of internships. I had 3 internships during my time at UNT. Real variety of work and experience, and you just can't trade the on-the-job type of experience that you get from an internship. So the other thing I'd say, just based on Leslie and Raquel's comments, I do think instead of a dream job, it's almost better to reframe it as a dream career, because with a career, you build it. And you may walk into your first job and love it, or you may not, but you will learn a lot and you can take a lot forward from that. And I know that's what I've done over the years. So sometimes it's not a matter of stepping into your dream job first thing, but you're building a career that's truly your dream career.
So is it my turn, Trent?
It is. I can ask questions all day long, but I want to be.
Okay. This is a question that you guys have to think about just a little, and we'll start with Leslie. Leslie, what if you had to replace yourself tomorrow? What would be the qualities you would look for in your replacement that you think you absolutely need in your job?
Okay. Okay, and this is sort of basing it off of just, in an interview, what would I kind of look for? Because there's probably some other things that I would like to observe along the way. But what jumps out to me the most is probably, strategy or strategic thinking, and then also communication, which is, I think, a theme that we're probably going to keep reiterating over and over again on this call. But I think starting with strategy, I think people often underestimate how many people out there that do not take the time to think creatively, in their day jobs and workplace. And that can be fine too, and that could be good for them. People just want to kind of show up and kind of, do the work that they're told to do, and that's fine. But when you run into someone who takes initiative, and tries to look at a problem or a task from all angles, it's so rare and it's so refreshing. So to the extent possible, if I'm interviewing somebody and I hear words like project management or problem solving, was there a problem that you helped, a company solve, or companies that you worked with in the past? Or even coming straight out of school, were there projects that you worked on that required sort of out of the box thinking? Again, this is not just a lawyer specific answer, I don't think. I think this can serve anybody well, in a lot of different careers. Something else that I look for is just good kind of presence and communication. Anything that shows that you've given advice, or you've presented on something, or you've influenced decision making. Those are all the types of experiences that kind of let me know that you know what it takes to take the time and effort and process to successfully convey a message. Again, that's very journalism focused too, but that works in all facets of your job, no matter what you do. A lot of what you do day to day is influencing people around you to take various kind of decisions. And of course, no matter how great you are at strategy or any other technical aspect of your job, you're only as good as you can communicate it, right? There's a lot of work that you do, and if you cannot communicate it well, it sort of, dies on the vine in my mind. So I would say strategy, sort of problem solving, and then also communication are what I would look for.
Fantastic. So Raquel, what about you?
To complement Leslie's points, I was saying the exact same thing. I don't think that there's anything greater for me than a creative problem solver. And I think that's number one. Someone that can creatively solve problems, someone that is engaging. I think engaging is important. And engaging doesn't mean you have to be an extrovert, right? It just means understanding for the moment how to show up and respond, and your presence, as she said. And I think self-starter and discipline are probably the four, because being a self-starter and being disciplined in your effort, I think, as someone who's new in your career, can take you a long way. Sometimes it's just showing up and putting in the time that indicates to your leader or the person that has the ability to help guide you to the next opportunity. It shows a willingness to participate, right? That you are really thinking about your career and the effort there. I also wanted to touch real quickly on the point that made earlier about how do you understand your dream career or your dream job? I think what's critical to think about this moment as well is the first job that you gain, or you begin your career, can also inform what you don't want to do, right? It's so important that at this time, if I were to impart you with anything, is use this time and the luxury that you have, that you can commit and commit well, and that can be many different things, but you also have the luxury to say, this doesn't feel like me. And I think I got a good dose of what I thought I wanted to do, I don't want to do. And I want to go on and try something else. And I think the ability to really respect your own self-compass also is an important thing that I look for in people that I am interviewing for jobs. How well do you know yourself, and how well can that indicate and inform how you show up, the energy that you exhibit, and how you weigh in on problems and opportunities?
Yeah, that's very good. So Tina, what about you? I mean, one of the things that both Leslie and Raquel have talked about is these dream jobs and what we can position. Tell me what you would look for that's really unique and different, and how you would know someone is a problem solver, or is someone that actually is going to take it forward and drive it home to solve your problems.
Right. So yeah, I would echo that problem solving is super important and something I would look for. And to stay true to your question on if I was hiring someone to replace me, first and foremost, I'm an entrepreneur, so I would be looking for someone that can take and handle risk. I would be looking for someone who can get comfortable with being uncomfortable in plenty of situations, because when you are running a company. You have a lot of challenges. In fact, a lot more problems come your way, than sort of just steady day-to-day stuff. So I do think, looking at the big picture, thinking strategically and also creatively to solve those problems for within a team or for your clients is important. Also, communication skills for sure, but I think especially writing, you have to be able to express yourself in words and in a way that is succinct and clear, and relevant to the audience. And so really knowing how to connect with other people, with an audience, et cetera, if you're in marketing or this field is really important. In terms of how I find out if someone is a problem solver, it's I think Leslie or Raquel said it, it's about telling me a story. Tell me when you were faced with a challenge or your team was, how did you get around it? How did you work through it? What was your process even to get there to your answer? A lot of times I'm way more interested in the process than the eventual solution, because I want to know that someone can think critically through that challenge. So those are a few things. I'm in branding, so I think also having someone that really understands how to build a brand, why a brand is important. Looking at things like brand equity and brand purpose. Those subjects are really important in my world.
Thank you. Trent?
Right. Okay. The next question, and Tina, you kind of got into a little bit of this with what you were just saying. So I'm going to start with you and maybe work our way back. But what is one of your favorite interview questions to ask? And what's the best, and like, if you were to hear that question, you'd want to hear this as kind of the response or answer to that particular question?
Yeah, so one of I have a few favorites that are always on hand for an interview, but if I have to pick one, I would say the question is, name one person that inspires you and why. Tell me why. And the answer that I'm looking for, it can be anything from, Condoleezza Rice to your grandma. But the answer I'm really looking for is why that person is inspiring, or someone that you admire. What are the character traits that you see in that person? How does that person show up and maybe align with your values or the kind of professional you want to be? So again, it's someone that will answer that and tell me a story about that person that's very inspiring to them. It tells me a lot about someone when they're thoughtful about that answer, and they really kind of reveal a little more about themselves in the answer.
Raquel, why don't you answer next, and then we'll go to Leslie after that.
And would you repeat?
Sure, yes. So your favorite interview question.
Okay.
What's the question that you love to ask in an interview, and what's sort of the ideal response that you're looking for when you ask that question?
I thought that was it, but I wanted to be sure. Okay, so the question that I always like is, tell me about a time when you've had an issue or made a mistake, and how did you recover from it, right? And what I'm looking for in that response is the process that you took, and really to get to know, as Tina pointed out, how are you comfortable with the uncomfortable, and how do you rally? How do you rally? And from the rally informs, well, what did you do next, right? Did you see it as just a mistake? Did you see it as a failure? How informative was it to the next set of decisions, right? And I think often when we are in our new roles, or when we're in the real world of work, right, it really is through a series of choices and moments and how we come back from those that set us up for that next level of success or that next opportunity. So I find that to be an interesting question, and I've gotten some really interesting responses.
Leslie? Uh-oh, you're still muted somehow.
Sorry, I keep doing that. Apologies. Okay, so I'm going to say something that I think has probably been said for the most part, but I love the idea of getting to know what challenges people face at work, and they can extend it to their personal lives too, but I like to kind of focus on work and understanding how people handled it and what they learned from it too. That sort of self-reflection piece is very important for me too. And I don't know if there's necessarily a perfect answer, but I would try to choose an example that is representative of a challenge that you might face at the employer that you're interviewing with. And to me, of course, that's kind of hard to peg, right? Because you're not at the place, but a safe answer, or at least one that I think is probably more on point than not, is one that relates to, or that involves people. And why? Because all companies have people. So it's relatable and it gives a sense of potentially like emotional intelligence. So, did you receive direction that you didn't agree with from someone? Did you have to work on a team where you felt like others maybe weren't pulling their weight? Or did you have to oversee a project that involved people from with different professional backgrounds or different levels of seniority? All those kind of people, interactions can present, real challenges that are difficult to overcome. And kind of like others have said, it's really about the process, like taking the interviewer into your kind of mindset about it. What were the pain points? How did you address them? And most importantly, what did you learn about yourself, in the process?
Great. I think one of the interesting things about the entirety of this conversation and what you guys have been imparting is that regardless of the industry that you're in, so Raquel in diversity, equity, inclusion, Leslie, a lawyer, Tina in branding and brand development, a lot of what industry in general is looking for, a lot of the very same things. How do you address challenges? How do you overcome adversity? So you're hearing a lot of stuff from different fields, but it's going to apply in whatever you're looking to do and whatever you're looking to be a part of. So I think that's interesting, the way that everybody's similarly looking for a lot of the same things. So I think that's important for the students to take away. Teresa?
A very famous line in The Graduate is when Dustin Hoffman is recommended to go into plastics. So what is the best piece of advice that you guys ever got about your career and your profession? Whoever wants to start.
I have one that I think is really good, and it's critical for when you are first beginning, is that feedback is the breakfast of champions. And some of you might have heard that, is that feedback, take it as, I think we often frame it, that feedback, you may think of it as criticism. It can sometimes come across in many ways, but it truly is a gift. And I think it is how we choose to take it. Some things you'll keep and others you'll flush, but being very comfortable with receiving feedback, input on your work, input on your performance, just input in general, being comfortable with that. And knowing how to navigate that is a skill that I think is underestimated. So really, when it was said to me that feedback is a gift, you can take that and it informs how you continue to enhance or hone your skills, and the ability to be able to take it in and not take it personally, not let it offend you. It can be really hard, but taking it in a way and filtering it that you can squeeze out of it what is useful, and what is not useful, you can discard and continue. I think anybody who can do that truly is setting yourself up for that dream career.
Mm-hmm. And I'll jump in after Raquel. I guess this is potentially an offshoot of what she's saying too. Someone once told me that I need to know my worth and carry myself accordingly. And that's not, to be pompous or arrogant or, overly confident, but it's a recognition that there's, so many opportunities for self-doubt to creep in your mind, which then affects how you interact with people or affects how you might communicate something. And it's understanding that no one is perfect, right? Even your boss or your boss's boss, they have moments where they stumble, right? But it's about how they kind of bounce back, right? And understanding that what got you here, you have certain skills and traits that got you here that are valuable and in a lot of cases are unique to you. So live in that, right? Present your best self. But most importantly, have that confidence in yourself that you can do whatever it is that's in front of you.
Yeah, and I think what comes to mind for me, so I have a mentor, a woman who rose through the ranks in corporate America all the way up to the C-suite. She was chief customer officer of a multi-billion-dollar company in Dallas and since retired. But one of the great things she said to me and kind of taught me was read the room. Read the room. So 80% of communication is nonverbal. And it is so true. It's more challenging on Zoom, but especially if you're physically in a conference room, a meeting room with a group of people, look around, see who you really are connecting with, or maybe you're not. Ask questions to get people talking and interacting, and really, learn to build some rapport in the room. So every time I'm in a big meeting, and I'm all in my own head about what I have to present and my slides and my technology, take a deep breath before I walk in, and I hear Brenda on my shoulder saying, read the room. And often I will even change the way I present or what I present based on reading that room.
That's great advice.
Can I chime in on that one? Just the reading the room. I'm so glad you said that because I thought about that yesterday, and it is a skill that is almost lost and underestimated of the value and the true magnitude of that. I think everybody has to get that because you learn so much being in the room and just watching the room and spending time in the learning of a room, a learning of your peers, your superiors. There are things that you can glean that no one can tell you or write down from just watching, being a true observer.
And I'll add to that, Tina, clearly you sparked something. Knowing your audience is another piece of that too. And it will kind of what Tina's alluding to, change or impact the way you present something, right? You've heard the phrase, what's in it for me or what's in it for them. It's another way of effectively communicating a message when you can identify the audience that you're targeting and specifically call out things that will resonate with them. And that's the same with an interview too, knowing your audience. You're going to be interviewing with various people at a company, and the way you communicate or the things that you focus on could change with each person that you are interviewing with based on their background or based on whatever issues that company faced. So yes, reading the room and knowing your audience are super key.
Great. Well, because this is such a timely topic for a lot of students, particularly those that are getting ready to graduate, we wanted to make sure that we did allow some time for the students to ask questions and find out some things about landing their job. I won't even say dream job anymore. I think we we pretty much established what that's about. But getting out from the university world into the working world and making that transition in a complete way would be ideal. So students, we give you the floor, and if you don't have any questions, I've got some more, so no worries.
I just had a question. How do you deal with nerves with job interviews?
They are always there. And let me tell you, my career path has now been 30 years in the making, and I still get nervous before a meeting or, something like that. So it's there. I have always been told that those nerves help you. They are there to tell you, I'm prepared. I can go in and do this. And, sometimes it is about a deep breath before you walk in. I will say, though, a word of caution on interview nerves. A lot of people who are nervous tend to talk too much. And you really do need to let that interviewer ask you some questions. They're very often going to be open-ended questions so that you can talk and really express yourself, but make sure you pause. Make sure you allow people to ask their questions. There's nothing more frustrating as a hiring manager or an interviewer to get in an interview and get through, 2 of my 5 questions because the person wouldn't let me get a word in edgewise. So really think about that, be really conscious of that. But I think for me, breathing exercises help with nerves. I don't know if anyone has other advice, Raquel or Leslie.
Yeah, I think those are great advice. And I would say practice. People underestimate practicing with a friend, practice in front of the mirror, practice questions, practice your answers, practice your facial movement, practice in your suit, practice in your jacket, practice. Can you tell how important? Because I don't think it ever, as you said, there are formal interviews and informal interviews. And I think of, there was an interview, you go in to get the job, and then every pitch or meeting can potentially be an interview. So there's an element of nerves all the time, and practice your body, understanding how you think you are viewed as you're sitting in a chair. Don't underestimate all of those elements.
Yeah, and I will just echo what Raquel said. I tend to over prepare for most things, but especially like interviews or, like she said, presentations. Everything, every interaction with someone is some sort of an interview of sorts. But in particular with interviews, I find that, when you over prepare, it kind of reduces the nerves a little bit because you're just a little bit more confident. You stand or sit differently. Your shoulders are kind of relaxed. You're giving kind of that power pose because you have prepared. And someone might think it's a little weird to think of how you might answer a question, but I think, like Raquel said, that's an excellent exercise. I mean, I workshop answers to questions all the time. I'm sort of a writer first, and so I'll write out my answers and then I'll say them out loud, see how that sounded, then I'll revise it, which it sounds overwrought, but I can't tell you, there is nothing more valuable than walking in an interview and also walking out confident, like, man, okay, I was prepared for that. And certainly you'll get some curveballs here and there, but you'll find that your preparation, there's probably facets of the way you answered something or that the way you prepared to answer something that could help you with that curveball too. There's a lot of times where I'm taking snippets of answers and applying it to some other question that I didn't anticipate. So cannot overstate how great preparing is. And then also, I think what Tina was saying, I have learned, maybe through mindfulness, but taking those nerves and using it to kind of propel you, and instead of feeling those nerves and thinking, man, I'm really nervous, I'm so scared, instead telling yourself, I'm excited. I'm actually really excited about this opportunity, and turning it into a little bit more of a positive thing. And you'll feel the effects of that mind shift once you do that.
Leslie, I write out every answer too. No matter where I speak, I write out my responses. The questions, write my responses, say a version of the response. Then on the day of, I throw all that to the side and I say some version of it. So, but it gets it in your head. Yeah.
Totally.
I think the other thing that I would probably add, and I know I'm not on the panel, but I'm going to throw this in anyway, is as you're going and doing interviews, you are just as much interviewing them as they are interviewing you. So think about it that way. I mean, I think a lot of people go into it, I've got to get this job, I got to do well, I got to, but you should be also kind of going on a little bit of a mission to see, is this a place where I want to start my career? In as much as I am looking for the dream job, is this as dream enough as I can get starting out? And so that sort of mentality can kind of help tip the scales a little bit and maybe take a few of the nerves off to a certain degree. I'm not going to say it completely eliminates it, because it kind of is what it is, but it does help if you kind of have a little bit of an attitude that they need to impress you in as much as you want to impress them. So trying to look for opportunities to interview them, I think is a good way to balance that. We got some questions also here in the chat along those same lines. Tiara is asking, she says she finds that she interviews very well with recruiters, but very nervous when talking to the C-suite executives. Do we change our style or approach when we're talking about the C-suite folks, or how should they think about those interviews versus just the recruiter?
As I hear that question, I think it's a matter of, the dynamics are a little different. When you're talking to a recruiter, you're getting information about the role, you're telling them about your background. And you just know that the stakes are higher when you're talking to a C-level executive, and maybe that person is part of the hiring decision or is the hiring decision. So I think some of it is what I call head trash, but it's like you can get in your head about, oh, how important that person is, and oh, I've got to impress them. But I like what Trent just said. Just always be thinking about any interview, no matter what title that person has. Think about it as you are interviewing them about their company, about their culture, about the role. You are trying to find out if it is a fit, because you're not a fit for every company. And so it's important to sort of walk into that, again, like Leslie said, knowing your worth, knowing what you might bring to the table, and really asking some smart questions so that it's a two-way street. So I think some of it is just don't psych yourself out when it comes to talking to a C-level executive. They're just people. And you're wanting to find out information from them, as well as have them hear about you.
The only thing that I'll add to that, and I agree, it's very easy to psych yourself out or want to treat them differently because here's the CEO coming in, and yes, maybe the stakes are a little bit higher, and sometimes they do have a presence, so it is a little different. But I think you kind of just have to come back to, how would you interact with somebody that you just met, anyway, even outside of an interview context. You ask them what their name is, what do they do, et cetera. And then you try to find some middle ground, right? You try to talk about things that are relatable to that person. And so that's how I would approach it. If I got the interview list and I see, okay, wow, at 12, I'm interviewing with the CEO. What does the CEO tend to care about? Like Tina was kind of saying, there's culture, there's the business, maybe I'll research a little bit about the industry and the challenges that they face. Has the company made any sort of recent announcement about something, kind of sort of a higher level thinking, not changing who you are, changing, how you would talk, but trying to find ways to engage the CEO that you kind of would think would be important to him, I think would be just some advice that I would give.
I agree with that. The additional element I was going to add is I do think there's a preparation that's needed, right? The manner in which you prepare for your recruiters is going to look quite a bit different, and Leslie touched on it, than the C-suite. And that's just, that is what it is. And that never will change, regardless of interview, even where I sit. The conversation I have with the C-suite looks very different than my peers in day-to-day. And so my preparation for that is different, and it's required that it's different. I think also in accordance with what Trent was saying as well, you are going into interview and ask certain questions and understand about companies as well. So it's important to build the muscle of doing your homework, doing your homework to be able to ask engaging questions and to be able to pivot in each one of these conversations. I know that we all have different needs, we all have different experiences, which will shape how we engage with the entire interview process. But I do think that thinking about that and being strategic about what your needs are, what you're looking for, who you want to engage with is important, because in order to land, let's just say, the perfect job in the moment will require you to do a bit of homework and exercise outside of that opportunity so that you really can engage in the way you'd like to engage. I think that's the biggest thing. Do your homework. Don't compare to your friends. Understand what you want to do, and then do the homework to inform and make an informed decision.
That's good. That's real good. Tiara also asked another question about reading the room along those lines. How would you suggest that the students do that in a panel interview?
Yeah, I think, yes, with a panel interview, you're going to have different personalities, different roles and titles represented, cross-functional teams represented, all of that. So, it does increase the challenge of reading. But I think it is then about reading that individual. When you hear that person's, if you have the opportunity to get a brief intro from that person about what he or she does at the company, what their role is, just strive to connect with that when you answer their questions. And so I think sometimes you can tell very quickly if someone is very fact-based and wants some direct answers and facts, etc., or someone who is more relational and is going to want that story about team building or something that you did on a team. So I think it is a matter of learning your audience in that moment and trying to connect with what they care about in the room.
Yeah, I think so too. Reading a room for a panel to me might look a little different. It may be, from my vantage point, eye contact and understanding the pace of the room, right? I've had experiences where Southwest is big on panels. Like, we've had rooms of 30 people trying to participate in an interview, and there are 30 people, or it's a sequence of events, almost musical chairs, interviewing a couple other people. So it can be very intimidating, right? And what I would suggest is have eye contact with the individuals in which you are engaging at the time that you're engaging. So if an interviewer is asking you a question, have eye contact with that particular person, and then move your eyes from person to person as they're speaking with you, and allow a little bit of breathing room and pace within the conversation, right? Steady yourself and be focused on what it is you're there to do, what questions you're there to answer. Think about what engaging looks like to you, and then have that eye contact. The reading of, you don't have the appropriate eye contact, and I think that can set you off.
Okay. We have another question in the chat. What is your take on settling for a job? So is it okay to, if you really have an idea what you want to do, but those doors are not particularly opening right now, but something else is that okay? Is that settling? Is that going to hinder someone's career? What are your thoughts in that regard?
So the question is, if you can't find your dream job, what do you do next, right?
Yeah, is there an opportunity to perhaps, is it settling if you take another job, and then how do you differentiate between knowing if a job is if you're settling for something versus actually kind of taking an opportunity that could lead you into what you really want to do down the road?
That's a hard one, Trent, because I think, it goes back to that question earlier about being open to each experience is a learning experience, and being able to, I do think it's key that if you entered into an arrangement and you find that it is not where you thought you'd like to be, is quickly adjusting and rescoping. I think at this particular juncture, I don't see any opportunity as an incorrect movement or a bad moment. I just really don't. I think they're informative to inform the complete picture or the roadmap ahead. And sometimes you just don't know. So I like to engage within the experience thinking about, I accepted an opportunity. Let me be clear about why I accepted it. Let's see if it pans out that way. And if it doesn't, I have new information to inform the next decision, right? And having been a communication and a liberal arts major, I know that can look very, very gray. It's not as clear as someone that is pre-med or has these other clear verticals. And so allow yourself some grace and really leaning into the flexibility to understand that a bit more. I think it's okay.
I would answer that in thinking about trying to get at least in the vicinity of your strike zone. And so what I mean by that is, I mean, I understand, you know, we all need a paycheck to pay the bills kind of a thing and pay the rent. But, you know, you are getting a great degree, you're going into a profession. And so look for, even if you feel like it's your settling kind of first job and maybe it's not the perfect job that you had in mind, look for something that's at least tangential to where you want to grow into. So, you know, yeah, you can go work retail, or you could take a you know, temp job, that kind of thing. Again, pay the bills. But I really think as you're building your resume from the first stop on up, you should be looking at getting in the vicinity of, you know, where you want to take your career path. So, you know, look for, you know, if you really have a dream to work for an ad agency and that ad agency job isn't out there, but there's a social media content writer job at a small company, and you can build some skills and you can build, you know, some experience, that's okay. Do that, you know, even if it's not that ad agency dream job, because you can get there.
I'm looking for Karina to say we're close to time. Do we have time for any other questions?
We have 3 more minutes if you guys want to, if there's any other questions that you think we can answer pretty quickly. Yeah, let's go that direction.
If there isn't another question, I would love to throw something else out, just that I've seen a lot. So, and I know I'm the oldest panelist, so, you know, you can take this with that in mind, but I really believe strongly that professional presence is still very important. And so showing up with some level of polish and pulled together is a really good idea, especially in an interview situation. I think things on Zoom, pandemic we've all lived through, the sweats we've been in every day, it's very easy to kick back and be more casual than you would normally. But I really think in an interview situation, you have to show up and really have more of that professional presence conveyed in how you carry yourself, even, you know, what you wear to the interview, all of that.
And the one thing I'll add to that, can you guys hear me okay? Mm-hmm. Okay, great. I was having some audio issues there in a second. What's that saying, Tina? Like you can't be overdressed or overeducated, something like that. And I think that rings true for interviewing as well. But I kind of like to carry it over to really a lot of ways that you prepare for an interview. I personally, I don't like to walk away from really most things, but especially an interview, thinking that I left something in reserve, or that if only I had done this thing that I was thinking about doing, I would have felt better about myself. And sure enough, there's usually not one particular thing, maybe you didn't dress business casual or whatever. There's usually not one particular thing that's going to keep you from that job, but psychologically, I don't like walking away thinking that if only I would have done X, and so I think, to the extent that those types of thoughts kind of cross your mind, should I do this? Should I prepare for this question? Should I wear the suit jacket? To me, if the thought arose in your mind, you should probably kind of go for it. That way you don't have any regrets, at the end of the day.
It's the top of the hour. Thank you very much, Tina and Leslie and Raquel, for being the panelists today. I think everyone got a great education. Hopefully every one of you on the call will have a great job the minute that you graduate.
Huge thank you to our panelists. Huge thank you to our moderators. Trent and Teresa have done this all semester, so huge congrats to them and thanks for all of this. And like I said, recording will be shared online through our YouTube channel. And thank you to all the students who attended today. I hope you got something great out of this. I know I did. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Have